The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode.
Welcome back to Old Space Show. I'm Brandon, and this is my companion, Tony.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back. We're thrilled to be here yet again.
We are totally thrilled. This series of Old Space Show follows the episode-by-episode time-traveling body-hopping exploits of the first season of Quantum Leap. Today we'll be talking about the 8th episode, The Camikazi Kid. I would have titled it The Mommobile, but hey. June 6, 1961, Sam leaps into Cam Wilson, a pimply teenager who is regularly bullied by his peers for his geeky appearance and the fact he drives the slowest car on the boulevard. Cam's older sister Cheryl is engaged to a seemingly decent guy named Bob, who, Sam discovers, is actually an abusive alcoholic. Haunted by memories of his own sister's brief marriage to a similarly abusive man, Sam is determined to stop the wedding. This is directed by Alan J. Levy, written by Paul Brown, starring Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, guest starring Romy Windsor, Kevin Speartoss, Robert Costanzo, Holly Fields, and Jason Priestley.
There he is.
Alan Levy, he directs 6 episodes of this show. This is the first one. He's also directed Columbo, Bionic Woman, $6 Million Man, Magnum P.I., Airwolf, Simon Cribble, Hulk, Battlestar Galactica, Lois and Clark, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, Hercules, Buffy, Jag, and NCIS. So he gets all the big television shows. Brown, the writer, wrote Thrashin', which is a Josh Brolin skateboarding movie, which is it's a treat. I own it on Blu-ray. He will write 11 episodes of Quantum Leap rights for the X-Files, Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Enterprise. This one probably has our most notable casting as a group. In here, Kevin Speartoss, who's like, who? I know him because he's in Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood. He's the hunky guy, which that one was also nicknamed Friday the 13th because this was a cast that did not get along, but it was like all these women and like the entire male cast, I guess, was gay. They didn't get the girls were like, oh, we're going to be with hot boys. And they were like, we don't want nothing to do with you. And he was on them, and he's actually become a activist for gay actors and stuff. Leaving this, he was also in some of the Subspecies movies. The Quantum Leap was one thing I knew him from. He's kind of got a look where it's like, are you Christopher Reeve cousin or brother or something? Like he's got that kind of like, if you're casting Superman at this time, he probably comes in and reads. You don't go for him, but he's kind of got that.
He's got that resemblance, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so he's there. Robert Costanzo, his voice once he pops in. You probably recognize him, but he would, believe it, wasn't he Bullock on Batman the Animated Series? I think he did. Yeah, he's, his voice.
Oh, yeah, distinctive.
Yeah, Holly Fields is a little bit recognizable as well. And, of course, Jason Priestley from 90210. But
yeah. Instantly recognizable. Like I can't imagine that 90210 was more than a few years after this, right? Mm-hmm. Because he looks the same. This was probably
like 91, I think is when 90210.
This is probably pretty early on in his career. But we talked about that previously with things like Terry Hatcher and things like that. That was this is a sign of the times. You would guest star on TV shows, not even really as a guest star. You would just hit on an episode and hope that built you up to the next big thing. And obviously for him, it did. So
yeah, they would pay attention to things like ratings. Like they would like, oh well, he was on a high rated episode of this and this and this, so it must be him. It's like, no, we didn't know the guest stars. Especially if it was like, especially if it was up and coming performer X, like it wasn't like, but that's how people didn't know that things were still being figured out with movies and television through the 80s. They still get figured out through this day, but we're kind of at the point, since we have algorithm movies and television shows now,
right?
They have got a handle on stupid stuff like that. But back then they thought they were all about ratings, and like, I mean, music and stuff was different too. Like it was all about requests and stuff like that. And then when they finally got SoundScan, they're like, "Oh, kids actually listen to rap music? Yeah,
hey,
yeah, they do. Look at what actually is selling." But
well, I mean, a show like this obviously is prime though for these actors that want to make that leap, no pun intended, because this, the anthology style show where essentially the cast rotates every episode except for one or two characters. Right. You can see someone, and if you have that really good turn, it's not like, well, the next episode he's in, only for 3 minutes and he's in the background. It's like he gets his chance to really shine, and if you take advantage of that and really impress someone, then that can be a serious stepping stone, which is what we're seeing with a Jason Priestley and a Terry Hatcher and things like that. It
can also be a danger with a spear toss when you're like such a dick that's like, oh, I don't want to see that guy. No, like people wouldn't just respect them as actors. If you gave such a vile performance, you wouldn't be like, you remember what was the show? Gary Coleman.
That's Webster, right?
Yeah, well, there's Webster. Was it the episode with the bicycle guy that touched the kid? What was it called? This is everybody remembers it.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
That old man was a notable character actor, and then after that, no jobs. Right. No jobs for him.
Well, and isn't it interesting how everything is kind of cyclical like that too? Because I know last episode we touched on briefly on the Marvel's Falcon and Winter Soldier on Disney Plus, and you kind of see that with the younger generation who's not familiar or who doesn't know. Wyatt Russell had the exact same thing when he played John Walker, and people are like, "Oh, he sucks." I'm like, "No, he doesn't suck. He's that good that he makes you hate him. Like that's a character actor. That's what you want." So
right, and I don't like see It's weird for me with this stuff. Like the show was Different Strokes. That's what it was.
That's okay. That's it.
But like, even Wyatt Russell's, I'm like, I've seen people much more hate. Like I don't know. Maybe because this isn't the first time I've seen Wyatt Russell in something.
Right.
So I don't have that guy. And I don't even think he was giving I hate that like he's not Marcia Gay Harden where she's just so good at making you go like, oh.
Sure.
Like, he wasn't typically, but. Marvel fans have different, like I noticed with things they're not always like the ones who pay attention to like all the a well-rounded entertainment. They tend to have sharp focuses on things, so it's interesting to see that reaction. So it's kind of funny. I'm like, he played this like lovable dude like stoner guy in a TV show before this, so I mean,
well, there's always a tunnel vision. I mean, you get the same thing when you see, Sean Gunn. They're like, oh, this, he's a pretty good rapper. I'm like, he was in Gilmore Girls for like 18 seasons, right? Like, these people have done other things. Just because you don't know about it doesn't mean that they just started existing in the MCU. And
when they get mad when someone gets cast as something, I'm like, they're a well-rounded like Robert Pattinson's Batman. I'm like, okay, like you realize Twilight was like 15 years ago, like he's done like really good stuff, like he can play Batman. It's pretty not far out there for him. Plus he's British, which is a qualifier for Batman now. But
these days it is,
So we get in this episode. Now it's in the 1960s, but it's got a lot of that 50s vibe still going with the greasers and things like that, the drag racing. But this one hits into like, we talked about racism and stuff in the South in the 50s last time. Now we're into like spousal abuse. Like it's not, they're not married, but it's pretty much what it's gunning for, and alcoholism. And is one thing I'm liking about the show. And I feel like it's bold for the times, like I mentioned before with the air base and stuff, but this is like an ugly picture of what was really people were really nostalgic for during the time this came out. Like, this is like an honest, ugly, real. Like, I really feel it. Like this one, I feel attached to because I just wonder. I'm like, how many like shit marriages people forced to stay together came out of stuff like that. This is that one that ends happily, but like how like most of them probably don't get this turnaround happy ending. Like they just find him with him and his life's terrible and like that I feel like happened a lot back then. Like I wasn't around then, but just judging by how, truth sucks, life can suck. Like, I could just see people and, things we weren't in the 1961, we weren't at like women in the workforce. There was women at home in the kitchen back then.
Right. Yeah. It's literally like you said, it kind of draws the curtain back on some of the ugly truths of looking at taking more of a reflective look at the time, because like you said, this show came out in the 80s. This is the mid 60s, so the people who were writing and creating this show really kind of lived through this. Belisario and his creative team, they were probably the youth at this time watching their parents go through things like this, and like you said, there's the issues of spousal abuse, alcoholism and substance abuse, but then also, there is those naturally that comes right with it are those themes of, things like women's lib and things like that. You see that they, like Cheryl wanted to, she wanted to be something more, and obviously in the original timeline before Sam helped alter it, she was kind of repressed. She was kept down by her husband, who thought it was cool at the for their wedding gift to buy her a colored TV so she can stay at home, and enjoy her time at home, because that's all she'll ever be is just a homemaker.
He'll be the one watching that damn color TV all the time, drinking a beer.
Yeah, you're right. And I understand, there are always two sides to every coin, not the spousal abuse part, not the substance abuse part, obviously, but there are people who, for everyone who says, well, they should have just grin and bear it and stay in a relationship, even if it's not perfect. Well, these days, obviously, the divorce rate is higher, but that's probably in part because people are realizing that they found themselves in a situation that is not ideal for them, and they're doing something about it, as opposed to back in this time where the show took place in the 60s. Yeah. They weren't. I don't want to say they weren't allowed to do something about it, but it was heavily frowned upon. Like that was just quote unquote the way it is, and you got to deal with it. You got to do what you got to do, and this, that, and the other. So
no, totally, and I mean, it hits on there, and like an undercurrent one that I don't think it's it's not the main attentive is like the bullying of Sam's character, like the really toxic, abusive bullying that goes on with him, and the fact that like. It's just a ha-ha thing. The older guys pushing the younger guy. I'm like, they're really like hurting him and just embarrassing him mentally, physically, with abuse of his car, and that's boyfriend and he's supposed to be like, oh, he's fine. Oh, Cheryl will get mad at me if I do it, but you guys go ahead. Like you're an accomplice. You're good. You're pointing your finger at it. The guys are just assholes to be assholes, and his sister doesn't even see through it. Like, she's just like, oh, it's just what they do. And like, no, like that's awful. And I don't know. And it's a time where you even can't write that Sam has to connect with the boyfriend to make him like, don't follow down your father's path with alcoholism. You can't be like, there's no happy ending for that guy, because back then men were too proud to do that. Like it's like, it's weird like that. I kind of find this like sadness in that guy's character is the complete asshole of this, because you see this guy's future and it's like, there's no redemption. He's going to be just like his father, maybe even in jail if he's willing to try to kill people and stuff like that. It's just crazy.
Well, and it's interesting too, kind of building off of, obviously the previous episode found Sam in a, leaping into the body of someone that he didn't expect, and it gave him a totally different perspective. Mm-hmm. This one, obviously similar to that, on a much lesser extent and a much different extent, but leaping into the body of a younger person, a teenager, he has to deal with, those themes and those feelings. And obviously now he has inside of him, he has the mentality and the attitudes and the experience of an adult, but he has to still navigate that as a young person, kind of trying to figure out how to best help someone without being able to say, well, I've lived through this and I can tell you from experience. He has to kind of thread that needle as well. So very intriguing episode here for sure.
And physically, he's never afraid to stand up to him though. That's the thing I love about this episode. Like physically, he's holds his ground.
Yeah. And it's all this is kind of hidden under the guise. Really, the first 15, 20 minutes of the episode, you don't really think, it's like, oh, okay, he's a nerdy kid, he's racing cars, this is just some goofy side story. But then, I mean, the more you get into the episode, the more you're like, this has got a lot of deep layers to it. It's very impressive from a technical and writing standpoint.
Yeah, and just the relationship with him and his sister, and building to, trying to get and the stakes, and there's genuine suspense in this. When they go to do the drag race, and his sister's he wants to keep her in the car. I'm like, oh God, no, and overhearing in the bathroom the dad's. It plays so well. Everything. I could watch this one again, after.
Yeah, it goes from the simple thing of, oh well, you're just here to make sure two people don't end up in a loveless marriage or whatever, to obviously having so many more things that need to be solved by trying to correct this portion of the timeline.
Right,
so.
And it shows the pressure of for the sister and her perspective of following through with this marriage, because we get to see the rehearsal dinners and stuff and see how everyone gets along, and they like him, they like his dad. It's going to be hard for her to explain to her family to get rid of him. It's
sure, but but alongside with that too, you could tell if you really do give the episode a close watch, and this is where you could tell that it was well directed, well written, and well thought out, is that you can see, even for example at the rehearsal dinner, you can see when his dad, the drunk one, is doing his toast and things like that, you can see the uncomfortable looks that their
mother, mother-in-law,
the mother, right, not only her parents who are like, we have to get into this family, okay, we're gonna pretend to make nice because that's we don't want to make any waves, but even his own wife, you could tell, is looking around uncomfortably, this
her mom to a degree as well. It's the women are uncomfortable,
right,
and they can't say anything. That's the thing.
You're right. And their dad kind of laughs it off and is like, oh, this is the way it is or whatever, and boys will be boys, and punching him in the arms and things like that. But you can see that kind of feeling kind of permeates the episode throughout, that everything is in this time period is not quite right, and everybody recognizes it, but no one really wants to address it head on.
Right. Yeah. It's if we just close our eyes, we'll get through today, and then it's all gone tomorrow. That's kind of the idea. And even today in our society, we have events and things like that, and people who try to just we talked about on this show, the movie Moxie, recently, and that has a lot of dealing with just gritting your teeth for the popular guy type thing, let it go through. And it's just no, it's an attitude that don't be afraid to speak up for yourself, or sometimes difficult things are the way to get through to change. That's how it is. A lot of times difficult things are how to get to change. But I mean, even while Kevin Spiritus' character, just no change, but at least his bully friends, they don't think what he does is cool too. When they race for the pinks, they're like, nah, man,
right.
No, we don't have
and you get at least you get a nice little redemptive arc for them too at the end, where they're like, that is, you are not cool, things like that. I mean, that was kind of a standard, a pretty typical TV ending.
True.
At least they got there. So
right, they earned it. And also, not to be forgotten, this episode has Michael Jackson in it.
Right, another one of these brushes with history type of things, where Sam inadvertently, maybe helps shape history. Even though this one, I know we talked about Buddy Holly in that previous episode, where the timeline didn't quite sync up. This one really doesn't sync up. I think Michael Jackson was actually in reality is 2 years old at this time, and it's this is not because this is 1961
scene, but.
Yeah, I mean, it felt funky. You could tell the second this kid comes out, is who's this kid? What talent show is he going to at the friggin' Ramada of whatever city they're in?
Yes.
How did they just happen to be in the same place at the same time? This one was a bit of a stretch.
It was a stretch, yeah. And lastly, Sam wasn't there to do all the things he was, apparently. He was there to kiss the girl who idolizes the teen he's in the body of, and Hollyfield was 13 when this was filmed.
Yeah, I know. That's I was just about to say. I can't believe that they had Bakula actually kiss a 13-year-old.
The character she's playing is 16, but still.
Oh my! This is this is one of those things that because the show was made at the quote unquote right time, however you want to say that, like this today would not have been a thing.
We
It
would
have
have
been
so
like
many think pieces about it.
it would have been like a hug or something, or like let's talk about let's talk about having a relationship. There would not have been, okay, full on grown adult man, come kiss this 13-year-old on camera and then let her keep kissing you.
They'd done the kiss like pan to a mirror where the pimply kid's sitting.
Yes, there you go. Yes, they would have to have found a way where
you hear the sound and it lights and
right.
Yeah, it's a mistake.
Yeah, that one was a little bit of a cringer, but I understand at the time it wasn't a big deal, and what in the scope of the story, it makes sense, and it's not done in like a creepy way, obviously, but because the character, like you said, was supposed to be 16, it was supposed to be two teenagers in their prime or whatever. But yeah, I mean, obviously, this is us nitpicking a more of a behind the scenes thing than anything else. So
right, not that deep. I don't think it destroyed Hollyfield as a person, but. And then we end with he leaps into a mobster scenario where he's over a dead body with a gun, and we get oh boy. So
that's right. Yeah, we gotta get it.
It's like, oh shit, what do we leap into now? Like, I love that. That's what I love about the show. It's like, well, we had this like teen greaser after school special type movie, and then now we're into some. And now for something completely different, as Monica, I would say.
Well, and this is an extra to, at least to me, this feels like an extra, like it has an extra level of like suspense, because not only did he leap somewhere else that you have no idea what's going on, but it's coming up to the season finale. The next episode is the season finale. And usually those are left on some giant cliffhangers, or those have some big reveals and things like that. So it feels like you're really gearing up towards a big episode, which is an impressive thing to do after coming off of a huge episode about racism and now an episode about spousal and substance abuse. It's like, where can we possibly go from here? I guess, tune in next week to find out. So
Exactly. All right. And so, please tune in next week to find out. And that'll do it for today. And I think we've made right where other conversations about the episode went wrong. So, Tony, tell people where they can leap to find your work.
Yeah, so you can always come hang out with me and read all stuff science fiction at sciencefiction.com. That's where I spend a good chunk of my time creating some stuff about old sci-fi, new sci-fi, all that good stuff. And then you can find me personally everywhere that Tony Schaabs are sold. You can go to facebook.com/Tony Schaab, twitter.com/Tony Schaab, or just tonyschaab.com. Either way, I am the Tony Schaab, and the one up in Wisconsin can suck it.
As well as the football player named Brandon Peters. They can suck it together.
Yeah.
Hashtag Mommobile. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD, written work at whysoblue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week, but from old space.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.